All right, you're good.
Okay, hey everyone, it's Stacy Mack here in Costa Rica, and I'm looking forward to this webinar on how to read surf reports. We have with us Bridget, and I'll have Bridget introduce herself. She's our technical specialist here. Go ahead, Bridget.
Hi everybody, I'm Bridget Conway-Taylor. You can find me on Facebook. I'm in the Women Who Surf group. I'm a beginner as well, so this webinar has been really useful for me to put together. I essentially host events for a living, so it's been really wonderful for me to help out Stacey by being the technical producer to bring this webinar to life. I'm available if you have any issues support-wise. Just send me a message and I'll try and help you out.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bridget.
I'm based in New York City, so if there's anyone from New York or the Northeast, I'd love to connect.
There you go. Find some people to surf with in New England. Hey, and I'm in Costa Rica, and I'm from Boston originally. And I will have Bridget, right now Bridget is the chat is gonna be closed in 1 minute unless Bridget has already closed it. It's open at the moment. We are gonna close the chat up for the 30 minutes during the presentation, and then we'll reopen it. Bridget right now will send you a link she's going to send you a link of anything that's important that you might need in the future. It will be, the website that I use is surf-forecast.com, and she's going to send you that. In the link that she's going to send you, it also shows my background and profile and my contact information just for you, for if you have any future questions. It's my background, so you understand how I understand how to read surf reports. I started surfing in Boston, and we had to chase hurricanes, chase waves, and I had to know how to find it. That's how it was. Now, a good question someone had already asked was, do I need to download an app while you're on this conversation? You do not. Bridget is going to have in a minute open up the screen. It's no rush, Bridget, but in a minute she's going to open up this website, surf-forecast.com. You do not have to open it now. It might be more confusing for you if you do. I would prefer you just watch it on the screen here, because she's going to go through it, and we're going to go through it line by line. Okay, here we go. She's brought it up, and we have this particular website is not used by any of my friends. Very familiar ones would be Magic Seaweed, Surfline. These are apps. The other ones are apps. I use this because this has so much in-depth knowledge. And someone asked me in the last presentation, a live presentation I gave on this, Stacy, why do you use that? Why don't you use an app? And I said, why do you date Joe Schmo and I don't like him? It's actually just a good analogy for why do I choose this and you don't. You may not like this website. You may choose the apps and continue with your apps that you've always been using. Some of the other ones also would be weather.com. People watch the buoys. That's how we find out about where does all this data come from? How do they know this? And it comes from buoys. Buoys are far out in the ocean, and the buoys measure a lot of things. They measure the surf, the temperature of the water, the temperature of the air, the wind direction, swell direction, dominant swell. We'll get into this a little bit later, which will help you about swells. Swell is very important. We're going to talk about that. Right now, we're just going to talk basically about what do these apps show you. And we're going to start up at the top. Up at the top of this page, it says, where do you want to go? Where's the break that you want to watch? We have Costa Rica, because we're going to do my break, okay, where I'm located. Then your region, which is our province of Guanacaste. And then we're going to go to my break is Guiones, okay? So I would say don't go on your app and get confused, but later you will want to obviously check your own area. At the moment, and again, write down all your questions that you have, because we're going to open up the chat box later, okay? I'm just going to check and see how many participants we have online right now. and see. Okay, good. We have a good amount of you online right now. This will be available to video to those that signed up for that. If you have a question, you do want it in video later, let me know. So don't worry if you missed the beginning or you came on late. We haven't said much yet, but okay, so here we go. We're on the first tab on the left, home. And at it's the home, we're gonna go over, yeah, down, let's scroll down below. Let's scroll down below. Okay, this particular page I am not going to go over. This is for you to peruse at your own leisure. It's telling you about the break. Let's go back up, Bridget, to the top. You will love looking at all this information, okay? But I want to look at this. I want to look at all the detailed data, okay? So surf spots is the next tab. We don't want to look at that. Let's go to wave and wind maps and see how that is. Okay, so much data in here, okay? Again, these are pretty pictures. You can open these up, look at where all the swells are, look at what all the hurricanes are. Again, we're gonna look for the numbers, okay? So I'm gonna continue over and we go to surf and wind alerts, another great tab, you know, for showing the surf and wind alerts. Now, you should default now, if you go up to the top, see where the break is above. Let's pick Guiones and press return after you do. Okay, wait a second. Now it's bringing up what I want in my surf spot. This is where all the meat is, right here in this second tab, surf spots. We're gonna click in up above. Let's go to the hourly, Bridget. Okay, up above. It's red right now under 7-day forecast. You may need to sign up with surf-forecast.com as a just with your email to have an account, but you do not need to. But I think nowadays you need to have your your email account in order to access the hourly. Obviously hourly is great to show you your whole day. The 7-day, which we don't have to look at that at the moment, but the 7-day obviously is going to show you a week. Now I default, and so does Bridget default, to Fahrenheit and feet. We're in the United States, but the majority of the people around the world, you know, when you do go to look, you will want to pick meters in Celsius if that's the case. We're not going to do that right now, Bridget. We're going to keep this right on where it is at, because I work with feet and Fahrenheit for the temperatures. Looking across the board, the next line down after the feet is the rating. The rating is in a star, a yellow star across the board. You can see all these yellow stars, you know, your numbers. We've got a great week coming up here in Costa Rica. We've had a really bad hurricane up in Mexico, which made our very bad over the last week. However, across the board, I'm seeing 4 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 3 stars. When I talk about breaks, I'm going to talk about, why don't I pick 3 breaks around the world? I'm going to pick one that doesn't really break that often. I'm going to pick another one that is very consistently average, about a 2 to 4 star. 5 would be like it's exceptional. That's our second break. And then the third break, I'm going to pick like a big wave break. And I'm just going to go back to these and talk about them. So our first break would be Boston, Massachusetts in New England, or in the New England area. Let's call that an area where it doesn't break all the time and every day there's not consistent waves. That would be somewhere where these stars would be 0 to 2 on a given day. You know, like most of the days are from a 0 to 2. In Costa Rica, where I live, in Playa Guiones in Nosara, I'm on the Pacific coast. We get waves every day, okay? This is what you're seeing. Our average day is a 4 star. Well, 4 is really good. 3 star, 2 star. We don't usually get 0 stars here. In Boston, you can get 0 stars. Now, let's pick a big wave break. That could be Mavericks in Northern California. If you don't know Mavericks, you know, Google it at some point and check it out. It breaks and it's about a 30-foot wave or so. No, I don't quote me on that, because I've never surfed Mavericks and I don't intend to do that. But you know, big wave riders listen to it. There is a movie, Chasing Mavericks, which is I liked the movie, and check it out, because what they do is they're listening to the report on the radio, which is the buoys telling you the weather, and you're going to understand what they're talking about after taking this course. Okay, now going across, the next one down, you see a little map which says swell height map. We're not going to click into that. Again, there's lots of maps that you can look at and match them up with what are the numbers doing versus what are the maps doing. I like numbers. I look directly at the numbers, and everything that map is saying is down below in all those numbers and all those letters, and we're going to tell you how to read those, which is awesome. So down below the map, the next one is wave height in feet, because we picked feet, and the direction of the swell. We're going to move over, before we go into what these numbers are, we're going to move over into what is a swell? What makes an ocean wave wave? A swell can be, we want a ground swell. It comes from the ground. It's a force. The force is from the moon and the sun and or a hurricane, or I won't go into depth about that, but we also have wind waves. And wind waves, I will let you know. We have out in the ocean, you can have more than one swell coming at your beach, and we call that a multi-swell. Okay, so you might have one coming from the north, you might have one coming from the south, you might have one coming from the west. Now, on a perfect day, ask me, I would like one swell coming at me, and you know, as long as you have them coming close together. But if you have them coming from different directions, one's coming at your beach from the northwest and one's coming at your beach from the southwest, they're going to hit each other. And have you ever seen, when you're out taking waves, have you ever seen what it looks like? Oh my gosh, one's coming from one direction, one's coming from the other direction, and they hit each other. Okay, that's because of the swell direction. Now, the swell, if we could bring up the JPEG on swell, we don't want to do direction. That's the direction. If we could, right now I'm looking at it, it's kind of big on the screen, Bridget. We can make it smaller so they can see the whole document. Yeah, for me, a little bit smaller and a little bit more higher. Okay, and a little higher. Bridget's moving, yeah. But it's okay. Even this is even fine. Just looking at this, if you can see this, it says swell direction to the right. All that green is the land. Everything to the left is the ocean. And we have N for north, northwest, west, northwest, and then down below, which I can't see. You might be able to see it. I'm on my phone, by the way. So these are just the directions. The red little dashes are just your beach where it's breaking. Now, if you have a north swell, it's going to hit everybody's beach differently. I would recommend you look at your beach or whatever beach you're going to go to, the break, read through in Magic Seaweed or in surf-forecast.com. Read up your break. What is the best swell direction that's going to be coming in? It will tell you so much information. What is the best swell direction for your break? What is the best wind direction from your break? Now, we're going to go on from here and look at the next document that Bridget has for us. And we have a couple documents. We have one. It doesn't matter whichever one. We have wind waves here now. And if the same thing, yes. And then scroll up if you can, Bridget. Just, you all can probably see it. Yeah, I am. Oh, there we go. Here we go. All right. So remember I was talking about swell. Swell comes from the ground. Swell comes from down on the ocean, in the ocean floor or under the waves. Wind waves do not come from below. Wind waves happen on the surface. I don't like wind waves. However, if you live in Michigan or you live in an area that's on a big, huge lake, you can ride the wind waves, you know. People will want to look at the wind waves. Being at a beach break in the Pacific, in the Atlantic, in a big ocean, you probably don't want any wind waves. The wind waves are going to affect what's going on in your swell, down in your big energy swell, okay? So I will show you in a minute, how do you find out on today if there are any wind waves coming in, okay? Last 2 weeks here in Costa Rica, we rarely get wind waves because we don't have strong winds. I'm going to use miles per hour when I talk about winds, but you know, knots are similar too. So if you're a nautical person, you use knots, you'll already know what I'm talking about. But in Costa Rica, we have winds in the morning from 0 to 5 miles per hour. And I'll go over offshore and onshore winds in a minute. But it's pretty consistent here, 0 to 5 in the mornings. It gets up to 10 in the afternoons, miles per hour. And then in the afternoon, it goes down. This is the wind, but it's not wind waves. Wind waves come from a wind that's happening on the water, okay? Okay, now let's go back and see the next chart that we have from Bridget. We're going to go back to our numbers in a minute. And wow, we have so many numbers. I'm so passionate about this. We have energy to talk about. We have swell periods to talk about, swell direction to talk about, all of this. Now, I want to mention again, well, it's Stacy Mack, if you didn't know that already, if people are joining us. We will send you a video of this if you've signed up for that, if you came on late. So don't worry. But also, now, Bridget, do you have you only had those two. Okay.
Just had those
you
two.
Didn't. Yeah, great. Okay, now we're going to go onto the numbers. And this is perfect, right where it is located, Bridget. We have wave height and direction. You're going to see across the board, 5, 5, 4.5, 4.5. That is your wave height in feet. That's a really good wave, to be honest. And you don't always just look at the height. You're going to look at that direction of the wave, where it's coming from. For a quick minute, we're looking at the dominant wave it's showing us here. If you go across to the right, you're going to see a darker shade of blue. That darker shade of blue, see over at the right, it's Tuesday. On the right we start like at 2.5, 3, 3, 3.5. They're very dark. Why are they darker? Why is that darker and why is the other blue lighter? Very good reason. The darker the blue, the more dominant the wave, but the better the wave is. Cleaner, and I'll explain cleaner in a minute. There's so many things involved in what is a clean wave. Now, while we're at the wave height, let's go back over to the left. On Sunday at 5 feet, we have a south swell. Okay, it says S below it. That means that swell is coming from the south. All right. So down below we have period. And across the board on this day, which is Sunday the 30th, we have 14, 14, 13, 13. Wow, this is a good day for here. This is about an average day. A little bit, we usually get 16s to 18s here in Boston. Now, this is why I told you about the different breaks. We have Boston that doesn't get many waves or smaller waves. We have Guiones that in Costa Rica that gets consistent waves such as this. And then we get Mavericks that hits on certain like big breaks, okay? Those are big waves. And here we have 14. That 14, the period means how long is the seconds in between each wave. And basically what it means is that amount of seconds that's happening is when the wave is getting sucked back to form to go up. Now, a 14 is good. It's going to form that wave nice. In Boston, when I used to look at the waves, I was happy if I got a 9 or a 10. And you people around the world in Australia, a welcome, by the way, from all over the world. Australia, or New Zealand, or where your breaks are bigger and stronger for the majority of the time. In Boston, we sometimes would, hurricanes were best for us. Hurricanes would be more like this day for us, 14 seconds apart. Why is that important? That's important because it takes that amount of time to suck up the water and make it power. We're talking about energy here. We want it to take time to form and go up. Now, forming has more to do with just, the period, the seconds between the waves. It has to do with energy. We're going to go down below, and you can see the wave graph down below the 14. The wave graph down below, you can see, like in the picture, it shows 2 little waves. Okay, now you have a darker one behind it. That's going to be your 5 foot, the darker one behind it. But there's one in front of it. That means you have a double swell going on today. Okay, so we're going to find out a little bit more about what's going on underneath the water by my advanced forecast in a minute, but we're going to stay right here for now. Now we have energy, my favorite. I love looking at the energy, and I don't know how Magic Seaweed or Surfline do with the energy, but I can look at this surf report and open it up and look at that energy and know pretty much like what kind of power I'm dealing with today. And again, going back to like on a normal day here, we have usually in the 300s, high 2s is the majority, I'd say, but 3s are a good amount of 300. We're looking at 831, the first one. Okay, you've got 831 as energy. Energy is just your velocity. It's a velocity number. How fast is it? How powerful is that swell coming in? Again, the swell is coming from the ground. Now, going across the board, we've got all these 831. We've got 831, 800s. We go to tomorrow, and you can see 400s, 300s. We're getting back. We have a nice swell coming in today. It's a big swell. Big for us, not big for some of you around the world. And then if we go on to our Tuesday, we see a darker blue. And the reason that is a darker blue, I can already quickly see it, is I've got the sets are coming in with 20 seconds between them, 19 seconds between them, 18 seconds between them. I hope everybody can see that. The difference between the other days are close together, 12, 14, 13. The 20 is great, and then, again, I'm going to say like it would be 10 in Boston, 10 seconds between, not much power. When we would get to hurricanes, it would be, 14 to 18. Going back over to the left, we're going to scroll across to look at winds. Now, the wind is showing a few things. It's showing the wind direction, which is indicated by an arrow, but also indicated by letters down below, saying NNE, north, northeast wind. And then we see a W, west wind. And then we see a SW, southwest wind. If you look at the west and you see 0, as I mentioned, we have barely any winds in the morning. We have 0 miles per hour for our wind. The arrow is pointing in the direction that wind is going. The wind is going to the west. Now, how do we know for my beach which is good and which is bad wind? Which is offshore is always a good wind for your beach. Offshore winds. Now, you might not want 40 miles an hour winds offshore. It's going to be hard to paddle into that. But then again, you might not go out at 40 mile an hour winds. Here we have, you can see the box down below, which shows wind state. That means in which direction is this wind going? If you look across the board, we love to see green. Green is good, gray is not. The darker the gray, the worse it is. Glass, you've heard the terminology maybe, oh, it's glassy today. It's glassy because there's no wind pushing on top of that wave. There's no wind crossing into that wave. It's got a glassy look to it. That means that it's good wind on those days, glassy wind. We'll go into the middle of the day. In the middle of the day here in Costa Rica, our winds always go onshore. What does it mean when we say onshore and offshore? When you go onshore, you're coming from the ocean. The wind is coming from the ocean and it's going on to the shore. Think of it as going on to your wave, okay? We don't want the wind to go onto our wave because it's going to press down on our wave and it's going to make it mushy and flat like a pancake. Harder the wind, obviously, the harder it's going to push down on our wave. 5 miles an hour wind is not going to affect our wave and make it mushy and flat, but it's not going to give it the curl if it was going offshore. Offshore means when it's on the land and it's going up, the land is called the shore, the beach, the shore. It's going off the shore. It starts on the shore and it goes off and it hits your wave. Yay! If it hits your wave, it's going to hit the face of the wave and then it's going to curl up and then it's going to make a nice curl on your wave. Okay, so you're going to like to see offshore. I'm going to scroll across, and on this day, they're just saying glass because it's glass is offshore. We do have the dark gray to say onshore. Now, what is cross on? What is cross off? Cross on just means it's going on from the ocean onto the shore, but it's not going directly at it. It's coming at an angle, and it's coming, so they call it cross. It's coming at an angle. And I ride regular, so when I'm riding, on a right wave, my left foot is forward. I'm going on a right wave. Sometimes I don't want the wind whipping at me. Like, say it's like a cross off. Like, cross off would be, off is good, but it's going to be coming right at my face when I'm going like sideways on a wave. So it makes a difference, like what you are seeing for the day. If you see 0 to 10 miles an hour winds, probably not going to affect you too much. But if I see it in Boston, hurricanes would come in and I would go out in 30-mile-an-hour winds. You have to be so careful in that. But I would say, okay, if it's in this direction, no, I don't think I want to battle that today, So please feel free to ask any questions at all on that at the end. We're going to open up the chat room after this for all of your questions. And, Bridget's going to let me know when it's about on the half hour. Okay. Feel free to interject anytime, Bridget. Bridget's our technical
good
on
timing,
the background.
We're about
here.
half an hour through right now.
Yeah, we are right now. Okay,
Yep,
good.
it.
We're almost there. Okay.
Okay.
So in about 10 minutes, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to open up the chat room for you to ask your questions. As you type your question in, Bridget will read it to me and then I will answer it for you. Okay. Now we're going to go down to heights, the tides, like how high is the tide? This we won't go into in depth because you all kind of know the tide is low, it's going out, the tide is high, it's closer to the beach. It means a lot, though. It means a lot. What you'll want to do on each of your breaks, say you're traveling, read through the description of your break. You probably will go out with locals anyway, and if you don't, you should. But you will look at the description, and it will say, this is now different types of breaks are beach break, point break, reef break. You have different types of breaks, and that's another class that I give. So if you're interested in that, let me know. But for instance, there are breaks that have lots of rocks underneath them, and it might say, beware of rocks. This only breaks at high tide. So you can't go out if there's all rocks underneath all that water. You can't go out at low tide. All you're going to see is rocks. So the tides are very important. You need to know the tides. There are tide heights too. It's based on the moon the top one says at 12:34 p.m. today, it's going to be high tide. Well, how high is it? Because it changes every high tide. It's not always the same mark. It comes up higher and lower. So that's what that little number is underneath. It says 6.53. It just means how high is that tide. And then down below to the left of that, you'll see 6:19 a.m. How low is that? And that's at 1.8. So you get to know it. You take a peek at your own break and take a peek. Oh, what does that mean? You know, it's pretty cool. There's so much going on here. Now we're going to scroll down to, she's defaulted to the weather, and I'm going to see just the whole weather screen would be great, because we're not going to go into anything underneath. We're just going to look at the weather screen. So down a little bit. Yeah, here we go. You can see it. Everybody can see the weather. Now on this tab is weather, is self-explanatory pretty much. It tells you about clouds, thunderstorm risk, rain, probability, temperature in Fahrenheit, but you can change it when you, at future date, when you're going to look, change it to your Celsius if you need, if that's what you use. Chill in Fahrenheit again, you know, how cold is it out now? It also tells you your sunrise and your sunset. I use that. I love using that too, because when can I paddle out, you know, like, and then sunset. We're going to go to the next tab, my favorite, advanced surf. Wow. Now this is where it all happens. We're looking at lots of numbers, lots of rows. First row is swell direction 1. Swell direction 1 is what you saw above. They picked this one as the dominant swell and the best swell. Now you can see there's 2 swells. You got 1 on the south. It's 5 with an S below it is for south. A 14 is for the period. Down below you have swell 2. Now swell 2, again in feet, we have a totally one that you didn't see at all. Now this is why I like surf-forecast.com. I don't, just so you know, I have no affiliation with them. I don't get paid by them. I emailed them to tell them I use this in my presentations, but in no way affiliated with surf-forecast.com. I might have found them from when I was a snowboarder and I wanted to, you know, find the snow. So that's probably how I found them. And swell 2, you can see comes from a totally different direction. We got a west, northwest swell, 10 seconds apart. Now you can see 9 seconds apart. Now 9 seconds apart, we're getting waves really close together, faster together. So you might have a little bit of a messy day. If we look down below on the last row, we say wind waves. I'm going to look across the board and I see no wind waves this week. Yay. But last week, I rarely see them here in Nosara, Costa Rica. Rarely. And we don't get hurricanes, by the way, here. Well, you know, you can't say never, but in the 100 years, there's been one that touched down on the north near Nicaragua. So in this break, we do not get them, haven't got them. But last week I did see wind waves and it was ridiculous. There was a hurricane going on up in Mexico and I saw wind waves and we could tell it's messy. You know, you've got, if we have wind waves with 2 swells going on, we call it disorganized. Okay. Let's go across the board and we see on Tuesday, we've got the darker blues on our second swell. Okay. Our second swell is going to be the dominant one on Tuesday. That's looking like, look at we've got 2 swells coming in the same direction, really big apart. Now we got a little smaller swell, like it's a 2.5 feet instead of a 5 or a 4 foot, but it looks cleaner to me. All the winds going in the same direction, you know, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Oh, that's wonderful. I wonder what Tuesday's like. Wednesday, because I'm getting together with a group of 20 women. Well, we surf separately, so like respecting COVID, but we all paddle out in the same area. So now this is just the same thing. One thing I want to go, just the last thing I'm going to touch on, there's a couple other tabs. I'm going to just tell you about sets of waves in a minute. Before I do, I'll end with the set waves. let's go over to the local wave finder. If you're in a break and you are visiting somewhere and you're in front of a break, but like, oh, it's going to be horrible, the winds aren't good for that day, the swell direction's not hitting this break, where near me is there going to be good waves? And this is awesome, because I used to use this in New England, because we would travel, like I lived 1 hour from one beach, 1 hour from another beach, 1 hour. And depending on where the swell was coming from, it could have been, Rhode Island might have got hit better than Maine or New Hampshire or Massachusetts. If you look at this one here, we got Guiones, my beach at the moment, is the best in the wee hours, 6 a.m., 9 a.m. But in the afternoon, like we got something better going on in Avianas. Avianas is a great beach. That's where I started to surf in Costa Rica. But this will help you if your break isn't doing well and you want to take a drive. It's awesome. And you got your ratings across the board there. And then that one's telling you the first row is nearest, offshore, or glassy. So that's telling you mostly your winds. Where are your winds hitting the best on that day? If you scroll down below, then it's saying best forecast wave conditions in Guanacaste. Guanacaste is pretty big, so it's hitting it's hitting like some ones further away. So it's pretty cool. Now let's go up to the next tab, Bridget. We've got Global Wavefinder. Yay! When you guys are all ready to get in that plane and go hit those big waves, get sponsored and be a big wave rider, this is going to help, because Global Wavefinder, of course you can listen to the buoys and around the world and see, but Global Wavefinder, if we go across the board, we're going to see, look at the numbers, look at the ratings, 10 stars, 8 stars. These are the big waves, man. We've got New Zealand and all over the world, Tasmania. So it's telling you where the biggest swells are going on around the world. And that's that. Now, I just want to touch on one thing. Get your questions ready. We're going to open up that question and answer chat in a minute. But one thing I just want to go over is in regard to swells, it's a system that's going on way out. It's not going on your land. It's nothing you can see unless it's a close, system or hurricane or something that's near you. But it's usually far out in the ocean. And a swell is what we just went over. But within that swell, you have sets. And in the set, for example, you could have 3 waves in a set, 5 waves in a set. Measure it when you go out there. Take a look at what's going on. Watch the report before you go and sit. When you're sitting in the lineup, figure out how many waves are in the set. Now the set, if you have 3 waves, the last wave is usually the biggest. So when you're sitting there and you're seeing, oh my gosh, waves are coming, I can see the waves coming, up to you, but I usually let the first couple pass me, and then I take the biggest wave in the set. Everyone used to say, oh my gosh, Stacy's waiting for the biggest one. Now I used to compete, and I'm so slow. I'm 52 years old. I'm bigger. I'm a woman. And sometimes I used to compete with guys, but I was like, oh, I'll paddle out slow. I'm a stand-up paddle surfer. I would paddle out slow, and then I would just sit, and then I would wait. You only need to get 2 waves in the competition, and I would just wait for that biggest wave. So I know the ocean very well, waiting for the waves. Now, another thing about paddling out to the wave, you can use this set in this swell to your advantage. If you don't want to, if you're paddling out for the first time when you're going out, wait for the lull between the sets, because you have 3 waves going on together, 1, 2, 3. And again, they've got seconds between them. 14 seconds or whatever. It finishes, and then there's a lull. And then after the lull, the next set comes. That's why there's a lull and it's called a set, okay? Well, I hope I touched on everything. And again, this is Stacy Mack reporting from Costa Rica in regard to how to read surf reports. We have Bridget with us as well, and she's running the background technical to this. We're gonna open up the chats. Okay, I'm going to put on my video, and you'll be able to see me and interact with me. Go ahead and, Bridget, let them know when you have opened the chat.
Go ahead. You can either ask a question via the Q&A tool, or you can drop something in the chat window.
Okay, we had already answered a question in regard to apps. You know, if somebody wants to download an app, you know, some of the apps that I know of are magicseaweed.com.
So we have a question here from Anna. Do you know how the energy of a wave is calculated?
So the energy comes from the buoys. You know, I don't, you know, like the data in the buoys, and now there's 7 types of buoys. Can you see me on video? Because
Yes,
it looks like, okay, can you see me moving?
Yes.
Because my face is like stopped, like okay. Now there's 7 types of buoys out in the ocean. This is very technical, so this is something I would say look a little in depth to. But there are 7 types of buoys. There's ones that navigate people out there, the green ones, the red ones for navigation. The yellow buoys that are way out there are taking the energy of what's going on out there, the energy of the waves. It's velocity. And so the velocity is coming in. And those buoys also pick the dominant swell. They're like, oh, there's this little baby swell coming in, you know, it's not as strong. But then they say, oh, there's this big one coming in, and it picks it. So the buoys determine that, and it's on velocity.
So we have a question here from Sarah W. Could you explain the local wave finder details a bit more?
Okay, so in local wave, the local wave detail is up above, you've picked your break. I'm going to say I picked Guiones in Guanacaste province of Costa Rica. So I picked that break. Now, I look at the report and I say, oh, I don't really like the conditions today. I don't know if I'll surf today here. But maybe they're better somewhere else. Now, the reason being is a lot of different reasons, but the coast is not north to south. Your coast might go on an angle like this, you know, like, so if the coast is on an angle and say Pacific is on one side and I'm at an angle, if something's coming up from the south, you know, a swell, it's not going to hit my break, but it might be hitting the break on the south of me. And so I want to look and see, oh, wow, where is a good local wave right now, so I can go drive to it. So that would be what it does, is it picks it up 2 different ways. Where near me has the best wind direction for another break, because wind makes a big difference. If there's like wind pushing on my wave, but it might be great for another break. That has to do with peninsulas, that has to do with right point breaks, left point breaks. It's the direction, you know, how is that wind? There's another category. So you have wind, direction, then it says best glassy wave, you know, so what is the best wave?
So you can basically determine which of your local breaks you will go to before you even leave your house or get out of bed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Next question is from Amanda Bastuni. What's too much for a beginner regarding the energy number? Is there like a range we should look for? Is there like a range that we should look for and not go outside of for a beginner?
Great question. Great question. Oh my gosh, I have chills. Well, I know because I surfed on New England, which didn't have a big swell at all. Now in June, we could have a lake on the Atlantic. You know, it really looked like a lake. So I knew exactly what those powers meant, the energy. Now, the energy, when I would go out in a hurricane in Boston, which was like a normal hurricane, not too big, but for us, like us say intermediate to advanced, you know, let's go with an intermediate. I live in Nosara, Costa Rica, which I consider to be a good intermediate to advanced wave. It's an intermediate who can paddle out, who can handle the white water. You know, if you can handle being caught on the inside, it's called, if you're able to manage that, you can take these waves at a 300-ish. Like we're at 300, and when I was in Boston, the hurricanes would be in the high 300s. My favorite wave when I was like an intermediate to advanced, I still call myself an intermediate, but I loved like 380. Like I loved 380 clean 6-foot wave in a hurricane in Boston. Now that's not a big hurricane. It's a good, enough power. It's what happens here almost every day. So my answer to you is, I think up to the threes. Once you start getting into higher than a 380, and 380 is powerful, by the way. You do have to know if you fall off that wave, you're going to be in the white water, you're going to be in the washing machine under the water. You're going to have to know how to do that first. So for a beginner, work on that first.
So under 300 for beginners, energy-wise.
Yeah.
All right. So from Julie, I don't understand how there are 2 swells.
Yeah, because there are 2. Okay, so we're talking about a huge. You think of, if you look at the map of the world, the Pacific takes up the whole side of the world. Like you're looking at it, and you can barely see land when you look at the Pacific. So all of that comes from that whole area out there. There's many different systems, we'll call it, going on out there. You have the moon and the sun are also pulling at something. They could have this little swell always coming in from the moon. It does. I mean, in Boston, you hear, that's coming in from the moon and the sun. The ocean is always moving. But if you have something going on out there, like could be an earthquake going on out, and you have one earthquake going on out there that just pushed something in, or you have a hurricane going on out there. Nobody knows it's happening out there because we're not out there. There's nothing out there really. So you have one thing going on in the north, you have one thing going on in the south, and they're coming at each other. So
there's different environmental activity
systems
way out in the ocean, and very different locations, and the effect of those activities is coming in at the beach from different directions. So they're going to clash, or they're going to join together, or they're going to whatever. Exactly,
depending on the angle. Now I'll also talk about New England again, which is in the Atlantic Ocean. We can have a tropical depression, Oh gosh, have you seen The Perfect Storm, the movie The Perfect Storm?
Yep.
That had, oh gosh, you have to see what happened. It made everything come together. You have something coming from the south pushing hot air, and then you have something from the north coming down. You have a hurricane, and then you have a tropical depression. So there's all different types of systems, I'm going to call them, coming at each other, doing things. That's why.
All right. So from Anna.
Good questions, everybody.
This might be a little bit similar, but this is from Anna. There is a physics law of wave interference. How is it related to swells of different directions? Why do those swells not mix into one in the ocean?
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes they do. And sometimes they do it right before you take the wave. So I'm going to say sometimes they do. You have to watch that swell coming in. You have to watch how it's coming in. Now we're getting into depth. We're not talking right now about how to read surf reports. We're talking about how to read waves. That's another class entirely that I do, how to read the wave coming at you. But briefly, you're going to be sitting out in the lineup, and you're going to see, you won't see it as much if you're out in the green waves. You're not going to see it as much because it's very slight. But if you're in the white water, you can distinctly see it. You're going to see them double up. They're called, double waves. Everybody has a different name for them. But, learning in the white water, don't take a double, because the one behind it is a different swell. It's going to push down on it. But that answer, you can let me know if I didn't answer it, but that they do sometimes come together.
So as a beginner, I've been in the water a few times lately, and the doubles that you're talking about are those waves that are within feet or within a couple of meters of each other. And if you catch one,
they're right,
the other's going to collapse right on top of you.
I don't take them.
Okay.
I just, everybody's got a preference. Some people can keep going with it, but usually the one behind it's going to slow your one in front of it down, unless you're catching it right as they come together.
So Amanda has a comment here. Okay, so there could be multiple earth-based swells, ground swells.
Yes.
Plus a wind swell. Does that mean then that there wouldn't be cohesive sets? it's sort of like gets
It's
choppy
called
and
unorganized.
disorganized. You
Exactly.
mentioned it. Okay, so there's some
Uh-huh.
breaks where it's beautiful, it's
Mm-hmm.
consistent, it's reliable, you can count it off really easily, you can visibly see it. And there's others that it's just disorganized and it's
Yeah.
chaos, and it's difficult to read the
Yeah.
waves and it's difficult to know where
Yeah.
things are coming from. So that's why the reports are good, because you've got that underlying data to, like, even if you can't really make sense with your eyes, you know what's going on under the waves or in the system.
Exactly. And you'll know your own preferences. You know, like I'm not gonna like two swells that are together that, and I'm just gonna go with an extreme example is Boston, 5 seconds apart. You'll never see that in most of your breaks probably, but you know, one that's you got waves 5 seconds apart, and then you got another one that's you know, 6 seconds apart. You got these waves that are close, 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 close. No, you know, it's just not going to pull up the power that you need to make a good wave.
Okay, so that comes back to the periods thing. We want longer periods, because the
Yes.
longer it takes for it to suck the water out, the higher or the
Yes.
bigger, more powerful the waves are going to be. Okay.
Yes.
Sarah W says, which wind direction should you look for?
You, every break is different, and that's why that goes back to why do I need to look at a local wave finder? Okay, no, in the world there's no country, there's no continent that goes north to south like this. It goes in, it comes out, it goes in, it comes out, because, you know, like it goes at an angle. That is why a wind direction coming from the west is going to hit every single beach differently. A wind direction, you know, like coming from the land and going out is going to hit every beach differently. So your beach, I don't know. You're going to have to look, you can go on to surf-forecast.com, open up your break, read about it, and it's going to say, this beach break breaks best at west, offshore winds from the west, swell direction at this. It's going to tell you. It's going to tell you.
So, like, as an East Coaster, when I'm going out, because the shore is looking out to the east, I want winds that are coming from the west. They're pushing out into the ocean. They're coming from the west, they're pushing east, and they're pushing into the waves to make the waves higher. So that's me as an East Coaster. Whereas
hey Bridget, it's actually not accurate.
Oh,
because
okay.
Yeah, because you're on the East Coast, but again, your coast does not go like this.
Right.
Your coast, you're on the East Coast, and that does not mean just because you're on the Atlantic, your wind is going to be the same as Rhode Island. Your wind is not going to be the same as a break in Maine that I go to, because that's why we had to use that so often, is because every break is different. It juts in, it juts out. You got point breaks, beach breaks, and that's a whole nother class.
So we want we want the wind to be coming from the shore, period.
Yes.
That's the best
offshore.
Wind. Okay.
Offshores, yes. And you in a little description of your break, Magic Seaweed probably has it as well, the other ones. You can go right on to surf-forecast, look at your break, read through the description. I didn't read through the description because I was talking about numbers and how to read reports. Read your description, and it'll say what is the best wind, what is the best swell direction for your break.
So we have a question here from an anonymous attendee. When people say, in quotation marks, that is a set wave, as opposed to a non-set wave, what does that mean?
Correct.
What's a set wave versus a non-set wave?
Right. Oh, you want the set waves, because the set waves are going to be your ground swell that create a set. Now, we talked about wind waves. Wind waves are on the surface, and you can have wind waves going on while you have set waves. So the set waves are going to be, they're also your most dominant swell that's going on. Dominant being, it's a set wave. Sets, going back to what I talked about, a set is a distinct 3 to 5 waves, depending on this, what set and swell is coming in. Let's go with 3. If there's 3 waves in my set, and it's pushing from the ground, and you got 1 that came, the second that came, and the last is always the biggest. What she's saying, people are like, oh, there's a set wave coming. It's the dominant swell they're talking about that has a certain amount of waves within the swell.
Got it. So we want to
That's
go
what
for
you
those
want.
set waves.
You want the set waves.
All right. Jody says, can you speak to how to look for optimal conditions for beach breaks versus point breaks?
Yeah, but again, definitely you can. But definitely, again, you would have to look at each break individually, okay? But yeah, it's obvious if you have a right point break, the way that it's coming in is going to be different from a left point break. And in the whole of the world, which we have, everybody is from around the world here. So we can't just say one direction for one type of break. But no, each one is different, to be honest.
Got it. So it doesn't really matter on what type of break it is. It's always going to come down to the very customized science data that you need
the
to look
direction of the point, the direction of the point, the direction of the beach. Beach has so much. We're talking more about a little bit more in depth about waves, like wave selection. I do a course on wave selection. But she's asking a really good question, because the way a set or the way a wave hits the break is different on a beach break than a point break. And that's in a whole nother class. Like, what is a point break? What is a reef break? You know, because reef breaks, like, they suck up the water like a lot better than a beach break. The beach break might be hitting, underneath. Every beach break's different too. Underneath, it could be like little sandbars out there that's slowing your break down. Let me know if I answer that okay for her.
I think the one thing that comes to mind for me when it comes to different types of breaks and what might be most relevant or most consistent to read, if you're on a reef break, a low tide, maybe not a good idea, because of what you said earlier about low tide. You can see the rocks, you could potentially see stuff that's under
the majority. Yep.
All right.
It's
So from
that's
Amanda,
the majority, but there could be one that is fine at low tide because it's so big. But yeah, the majority is high tide.
Okay. Amanda says, with the low tide and high tide heights, obviously with high tides, 1.8 versus 6.5 means the higher number is higher up on shore, right? So then with low tide, which means further out to sea, the lower or higher number, if that makes sense. Not sure about what question this is, but
yeah, like if she could, I understand exactly what she was talking about, just like the question about them.
Yeah, what's the question relating to what?
But I understand what she means.
And Jody says, all good. Surf Oregon, Shifty Beach break.
Okay, great. Thanks. I can talk about.
So Amanda's follow-up question is, so is the lower number further out to sea when you're talking about low tide?
So if we're just, so if we're talking about, and she's probably like talking about high tide and low tide. So for instance, let's go with the high tide. If today it says 6.8, okay, and I'm looking at my beach. The only reason I'm picking that is you can kind of see, the water line, the high tide. You can see the water line. If today it's at 6.8, and it's always moving because with the moon and if it's 6.8, I can see the water line. Now next week, if it's at 8 point something, it's going to be higher. My water line, you can see how the water line, meaning seeing where it was wet, it's going to be higher. So same thing with the low tide, but the opposite, like there's a 0.0, okay, and it goes out, and your out is going to be a higher number.
Right. So your water line, the lower number of the low tide is much further out.
Oh, she said
the higher
thanks.
number of the high tide. Yeah. All
okay,
right, we're on the hour.
All right, we got everybody?
We got all the questions.
Great.
The link to the document again. And we've recorded this session, so we'll save this recording and upload it and share the link out.
Great. And she's gonna why don't you, Bridget, just post the link to the surf-forecast, and there's a bio on me, just I was going to say in Spanish, ustedes, so that everybody knows, and if you want to reach out to me, you can, if you have any questions. Yeah, and for anybody that signed up for the video, we will send that along to you. And if you do want a copy and you didn't sign up for it, let us know. And I thank everybody for coming on here. I really appreciate, like you having faith in me to do this, and love sharing my knowledge. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, thank you.